I collapsed at work, but my parents ignored the call, and sister posted family day without the drama. So I cut off their free ride and let their world crash. This happened about 8 months ago, and I'm still processing it. I'm using a throwaway because people know my main account. Fair warning, this is long, but I promise it's worth reading to the end. Some details might seem unbelievable, but I've got documentation for everything. I'm a 29-year-old male mechanical engineer at a manufacturing company outside Houston. I started there right out of Texas A&M making $75,000. I worked my butt off through countless overtime hours and weekend projects. I got promoted 3 times, and now I'm pulling in $165,000 plus profit sharing. That adds another $40,000 yearly. I'm not trying to show off. This matters for the story because it shows how much money was flowing out of my accounts. Let me paint you a picture of where I came from so you understand the family dynamics. I come from a working-class family in small-town Texas where money was always tight growing up. Dad sells insurance from a strip mall office that's seen better days. Mom does bookkeeping part-time for local businesses when she feels like it. I have 2 sisters, Ashley, 26, and Brittany, 24. Growing up, I was always the responsible one, the one who got good grades while my sisters partied and barely graduated high school. When I got my first real engineering job, I was incredibly proud. I was the first person in my family to break 6 figures, and I genuinely wanted to help everyone out. Looking back, that was the biggest mistake of my life. It started small and innocuous. Ashley's car transmission died suddenly. She needed $1,200 for repairs. No problem, I had the money, and she promised to pay me back within 3 months. Brittany's apartment deposit got delayed because of some mix-up with her previous landlord. Just $800, an easy fix. Family helps family. Mom's dental work wasn't covered by insurance because it was considered cosmetic, even though she really needed it. $1,500 Dad's insurance office rent when business was slow during a rough quarter. $650. I was making good money. It felt incredible to be the successful one helping family during tough times. The requests always came with detailed explanations and promises to pay back quickly. Ashley would send long texts about how grateful she was and how she'd never forget this. Brittany would cry on the phone about how I was saving her life. Mom would talk about how proud she was of her successful son. Dad would get all emotional about family sticking together through thick and thin. But here's the thing about being the family bank. Once you start, they expect it forever, and the amounts kept growing exponentially. What started as emergency help became routine monthly expectations. Ashley decided she wanted to be an influencer after watching too many YouTube success stories, so she needed $4,000 for professional camera equipment and photography sessions. She had a whole business plan printed out and highlighted, showing me projected income that never materialized. Brittany wanted to start an online boutique selling trendy clothes to college girls. She needed $12,000 for initial inventory from some supplier she'd found online. She spent weeks showing me Pinterest boards and talking about her vision. Dad's insurance office was struggling against bigger competitors. Could I co-sign an $18,000 equipment loan for new computers and software? He had spreadsheets showing how this investment would triple his revenue within 6 months. Mom wanted to get her real estate license and flip houses like she'd seen on HGTV. She just needed $15,000 for her first property down payment. She'd already picked out the house and had renovation plans drawn up. Every single venture failed spectacularly and expensively. Ashley's Instagram influencer career peaked at maybe 400 followers after 2 years of constant posting. She blamed the algorithm and jealous haters for her lack of success, never acknowledging that her content was basic and uninspiring. Brittany's boutique lasted exactly 5 months before she got bored and moved on to her next brilliant idea. She claimed the supplier had sent the wrong inventory, but I later found out she just ordered poorly and couldn't return anything. Dad's office expansion never happened despite the expensive equipment. He spent more time playing solitaire on the new computers than acquiring clients. The loan payments continued, though, right on schedule. Mom's house flip became a financial nightmare when she couldn't handle contractor problems, permit issues, and cost overruns. She lost $8,000 on top of my initial investment when she panic sold the property. Did any of them pay me back? Of course not. They just kept coming back for more, and like an idiot, I kept saying yes because family comes first, right? By this year, I was bleeding money. Between direct payments, co-signed loans, and bills I'd somehow become responsible for, I was covering about $5,200 monthly in family expenses. That's $62,400 per year, more than most people's entire salary. Just gone keeping my family afloat. The stress was systematically destroying me both physically and mentally. I was working 65-hour weeks at my regular job, then taking on freelance consulting projects every weekend just to keep up with the financial demands. My apartment became a place I just slept for a few hours between work sessions. I was living on protein bars, energy drinks, and whatever fast food I could grab between meetings. I'd get sharp chest pains during high-pressure project meetings, but convinced myself it was just normal stress. My hands would shake when reviewing the monthly bills I was covering for everyone. I started having insomnia, lying awake calculating and recalculating how much money was going out versus coming in. My CO workers started commenting that I looked exhausted all the time. My manager pulled me aside twice, asking if everything was okay at home because my performance was suffering. I was making mistakes on projects that I'd never made before, forgetting important details, missing deadlines, but I kept pushing through because I had to hit my numbers and bonuses to cover everyone's bills. The irony was that my family saw my success at work and assumed I was doing great financially, not realizing I was barely staying afloat despite my good salary. Then, last Tuesday happened. I was in a design review meeting, arguing with the client about some specification change, when I felt this weird tightness in my chest. I thought it was another stress episode until my vision started tunneling. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in Memorial Hermann Hospital with more monitors attached to me than on our factory floor. Turns out I'd had what my doctor called an acute cardiac event. Not technically a heart attack, but close enough that if my CO workers hadn't called 911 immediately, I might not be writing this. My doctor said it was stress-induced, which made sense. Blood pressure through the roof, pre-diabetic from living on protein bars and energy drinks, hadn't slept properly in months. The hospital staff was incredible. The nurses were professional, my cardiologist knew his stuff, and the whole team was on point. When they asked for emergency contacts, I gave them my parents' info like always. They said they'd called and left detailed messages, so I waited. Day 1, nothing. Day 2, still nothing. Day 3, I'm starting to panic, thinking something had happened to them. Maybe Dad had a health scare. Maybe Ashley was in an accident. That's when I checked Instagram and saw something that changed everything forever. I'll never forget opening that app. My phone had been buzzing with notifications, and I figured maybe someone had heard about my hospitalization and was checking in. There was a notification. Ashley had tagged me in a story. My heart actually jumped with hope, thinking maybe it was a get well soon post or the family sending love and support during a scary time. It absolutely wasn't. Picture this. My entire family at Topgolf, all smiles, fancy drinks in hand, having the absolute time of their lives. Ashley wearing some $300 designer outfit I'd probably financed without realizing it. Brittany sporting new designer sunglasses that cost more than my daily hospital copay. Mom and Dad looking more relaxed and happy than I'd seen them in years. The caption that made my blood pressure spike and my heart monitor start beeping, family fun day. Sometimes you need a break from toxic energy. Bless no drama mama, family time, living our best life. And they had tagged me in it. Tagged me. While I was lying in a hospital bed connected to machines monitoring whether my heart would give out completely. With 4S in my arms and oxygen monitoring my every breath. The timestamp showed they'd posted it yesterday afternoon. Day 2 of my hospital stay. The exact same day my doctor had told me I could have died if my cardiac episode had lasted any longer, or if my CO workers hadn't acted so quickly. I started scrolling through their recent posts with growing horror and disbelief. Ashley had been to 4 expensive restaurants that week alone, posting elaborate food pics that probably cost $80 to $100 per meal. Brittany had posted a massive shopping haul video showing off clothes and accessories worth more than my monthly car payment. Dad had pictures from some golf tournament with his buddies looking like he didn't have a care in the world. Mom was at an upscale spa getting massages and facials, posting about self-care Sunday. All of this while I was lying alone in a sterile hospital bed, wondering if they were okay because they hadn't bothered to call even once. That's when it hit me like a freight train. They knew exactly where I was. The hospital had called them multiple times. They just didn't care. I wasn't their son or brother. I was their personal ATM, and ATMs don't need emotional support. They just need to keep dispensing cash. I spent that night doing something I'd never done, actually calculating how much money I'd given them over the years. Bank statements, credit card records, Venmo payments, cash I'd handed over and never tracked. The number was staggering, $143,000 over 4.5 years. More than most people's houses in my hometown. Gone. And what did I have to show for it? A hospital bed, a failing heart, and a family that celebrated when I wasn't around. But while I was crunching numbers, my phone started buzzing with alerts from my bank app. Someone was trying to use the emergency credit card I'd given my parents for real emergencies only. They'd attempted to charge $4,200 at some steakhouse in Dallas. I called my bank and requested transaction details. Turns out they'd been using that card regularly for months. Fancy dinners, shopping sprees, even a weekend trip to Galveston. Total charges $13,800 in the last 4 months alone. While I was literally working myself into heart failure to support them, they were living their best life on my emergency credit line. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. Day 4. In the hospital, staring at $13,000 in unauthorized charges on my emergency card, my phone started ringing nonstop. 52 missed calls in 3 hours, all from my dad. The desperation was palpable even through voicemail. The text that followed was classic him. Call immediately. Family emergency happening now. Urgent situation requires your attention. No hope you're feeling better. No sorry we haven't visited our son in the hospital. Just pure panic because they'd figured out I was reviewing their spending patterns and putting 2 and 2 together. But before calling them back, I did something I should have done years ago. I called Uncle Rick. Rick is my dad's older brother, who supposedly abandoned the family by moving to Colorado and starting his own construction company 15 years ago. The family always painted him as selfish and ungrateful. Reality was, he was the only one who'd seen through my family's manipulation tactics and refused to enable their behavior. He tried warning me about them before, but I was too deep in the fog to listen. He answered on the first ring like he'd been expecting my call. Which hospital, son? That was it. No guilt trip about not staying in touch, no 20 questions about what happened, no lectures about family loyalty, just immediate practical action focused on helping me. He drove 12 hours straight from Denver, only stopping for gas and coffee. He walked into my room, still wearing dusty work boots and a hard hat smelling like sawdust and honest work. He looked at me hooked up to all those machines and said, "So they finally bled you dry, didn't they? I was wondering when you'd wake up." Rick stayed for 4 full days, sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chair and refusing to leave my side. He actually talked to my medical team like an adult, asking intelligent questions about my recovery timeline, treatment options, and what lifestyle changes I needed to make. When insurance was being difficult about covering my upgraded room, he quietly handled the difference without making a big production about it. Just got it done, like families should. Then he pulled out his laptop and said we needed to do a complete financial audit of my life. Time to see how deep this rabbit hole goes. The audit was eye-opening and absolutely terrifying. Rick has a business degree from UT and 20 years of experience running his own company. He broke down my finances like a forensic accountant examining a crime scene, and what he found was systematic financial abuse on a scale I couldn't have imagined. My name was attached to 4 car loans for vehicles I'd never driven, never seen, never agreed to finance, 9 credit cards I'd never requested, most maxed out with purchases I didn't recognize, 3 personal loans I didn't remember signing, with forged signatures that barely resembled my handwriting, 2 mortgages on properties I'd never seen in cities I'd never visited, monthly automatic payments to utilities for 5 different addresses across Texas, insurance policies on cars, motorcycles, boats, and even an RV I'd never heard of. The boat discovery was what really broke my brain. Brittany had bought a $23,000 wakeboarding boat last summer for lifestyle content creation and somehow gotten me to finance the entire thing, plus insurance. I'd never even seen this boat. She'd convinced me over the phone that it was just paperwork for some business investment, and I'd signed documents she emailed without reading them carefully. The boat was now sitting in some marina near Austin, accumulating storage fees that were also somehow tied to my credit. Rick helped me calculate the total damage with a spreadsheet that made my head spin. $346,000 in less than 5 years. $203,000 in active debt tied directly to my name, plus the $143,000 I'd given them outright. More money than most people see in a decade, just evaporated into their irresponsible lifestyle choices. "Your family didn't just use you," Rick said, shaking his head in disgust. "They systematically harvested you like a crop they planted for their own benefit." We started making calls right from my hospital room. Rick had me place fraud alerts on everything, cancel automatic payments, and remove their access to any accounts they'd infiltrated. Best part, Rick had kept detailed records every time they'd approached him for money over the years, which he'd always refused. Ashley had pitched him on investing in her social media consulting business. Brittany wanted him to bankroll some online store. Dad had tried getting him to invest in office expansion. Rick had saved every text, email, and voicemail. He'd been building a case file for years, waiting for me to wake up. By the time visiting hours ended, we'd locked down everything. New bank accounts they couldn't access, credit monitoring, automatic payment cancellations, everything. That's when my phone absolutely exploded. The fallout was immediate and nuclear. My phone became unusable. Hundreds of calls, texts, voicemails, Facebook messages, Instagram DMs, even LinkedIn messages from my mom, who had to create a LinkedIn account just to reach me. Ashley went full meltdown first. A 53-minute voicemail that started with fake crying and escalated to her screaming about how I was destroying innocent people and ruining everyone's future. She actually said, word for word, "We invested so much energy in you, and this is how you repay us? Invested energy in me, like I was their business venture." Brittany chose the manipulation route, sending me a novel-length text about being terrified from my mental state and just wanting her big brother healthy again. Really touching stuff, except she punctuated it with Venmo requests for $500, $300, and $425. Mom tried emotional manipulation. "I don't know what those doctors told you, but this isn't my son. My son would never abandon his family during our darkest hour." She sent this while posting Instagram stories from some expensive brunch place. Dad went straight to intimidation. Multiple voicemails about how I was committing financial crimes and would face serious legal consequences. Bold words from someone whose business I'd kept alive for 3 years. But the absolute peak was when they showed up at the hospital together. Security called my room saying 4 people in the lobby were claiming to be my immediate family and demanding access. I told them absolutely no visitors. So what did they do? Created a scene in the lobby. Ashley was sobbing loudly about being abandoned by her dying brother. Brittany was filming it for social media because even family emergencies were content opportunities. Mom was demanding to speak with my doctor about my obvious mental breakdown. Dad was threatening lawsuits against the hospital for unlawful patient isolation. Security removed them, but not before Ashley shouted loud enough for everyone to hear, "We sacrificed everything for you. This is how you repay your family." The irony was beautiful. They sacrificed everything while I'd literally funded their lives for years, but they weren't finished. Not even close. That evening, I got a call from my landlord. Someone claiming to be my brother had called saying I'd been in a serious accident and needed him to pack my belongings because I'd be institutionalized for months. When my landlord mentioned I only had sisters, the caller hung up immediately. They were actually trying to access my apartment to steal my possessions. Then my company's HR department called. Someone claiming to be my father had contacted them asking about my health insurance benefits and disability payments, saying they were managing my affairs during recovery. HR shut it down fast, but the nerve was incredible. The final straw came the next morning. I woke up to a Facebook post from Ashley that had been shared over 300 times. "Please keep my brother in your prayers during his severe mental health crisis. He's been manipulated by someone into cutting off his entire family during the worst period of our lives. We just want him to get proper help and come home safe. Pray for healing. Family first." She'd tagged me, my employer, my university, and about 75 mutual contacts. Comments were mixed between people offering sympathy and others asking what really happened. Several CO workers had seen it and were messaging to ask if I needed anything. That's when I realized they'd escalated to total warfare. If they couldn't guilt or threaten me back into compliance, they'd destroy my reputation and paint me as the villain. Time for the nuclear option. Ashley's Facebook post was my line in the sand. They wanted public warfare? Game on. Rick had been making calls while I planned my counterattack. His lawyer specialized in family financial fraud and elder abuse cases. Even though I wasn't elderly, the exploitation patterns were identical: systematic financial manipulation, isolation tactics, and organized theft. We filed paperwork that morning for fraudulent use of credit accounts, that emergency card they'd maxed, identity theft for accounts opened without my knowledge, cease and desist orders preventing them from contacting my employer or impersonating me, and restraining orders blocking them from accessing my apartment or assets. But the real nuclear bomb was what Rick discovered during his deep financial investigation. Remember that house Mom wanted to flip, the one I'd given her $15,000 for? She'd actually purchased it using a mortgage that listed me as primary co-signer without my knowledge or consent. The property was now in foreclosure, and the bank was pursuing me for the remaining $54,000 balance. That's fraud, felony level, mortgage fraud. Rick's lawyer called it one of the most blatant cases of family financial exploitation he'd encountered in 25 years. We had evidence of forged signatures, unauthorized credit applications, and systematic identity theft spanning 4 years. But instead of filing criminal charges immediately, we decided to give them one opportunity to make things right. Rick thought it would be educational to see how they'd respond when cornered, so I posted my own Facebook response to Ashley's manipulation attempt. Since my sister decided to make our private family business public, here are the actual facts. I've financially supported my family for over 4 years, totaling more than $346,000. Last week, I suffered a cardiac episode from stress. While I was hospitalized, they celebrated my absence on social media while maxing out my emergency credit card. I've discovered multiple fraudulent accounts opened in my name without permission, including a mortgage I never signed. I'm working with legal counsel to address the criminal fraud charges. I hope they find the help they clearly need. I included screenshots of the credit card charges during my hospital stay and their Instagram Family Fun Day celebration post. The response was immediate and devastating. Ashley's post went from 300 shares to over 3,000. But now the comments were absolutely roasting my family instead of supporting them. People were calling them parasites, con artists, and much worse. Local news picked up the story because of the family abandoned son during heart attack angle. It spread through regional, social media groups, and suddenly thousands of people knew about my family's behavior. Ashley's Instagram followers dropped from 1,400 to 200 in 3 days. The few local businesses sponsoring her, mostly boutiques and restaurants, terminated their partnerships immediately. Brittany's online store reviews got bombed by people calling her a scammer. Dad's insurance office Google page was flooded with 1-star reviews mentioning the story. But the most satisfying part, Mom's real estate license came under state investigation. Using fraudulent documentation to secure property mortgages is a major violation for licensed agents. The state board suspended her license pending full investigation. They went from trying to publicly shame me to being publicly humiliated themselves in under 72 hours. That's when the desperate begging started. 4 weeks later, I was home recovering when Rick called with updates. The house Mom had fraudulently bought in my name sold at foreclosure auction for significantly less than owed. The bank was pursuing the deficiency judgment against both of us. But since I could prove fraud with documentation, they were targeting her exclusively. She was facing a $58,000 debt she couldn't possibly pay, plus potential felony charges. Dad's insurance office had officially closed. Turns out when your Google reviews mention family fraud and stealing from your own son, people stop trusting you with their insurance needs. He was facing personal bankruptcy and had received eviction notices. Ashley's influencer career was completely dead. She'd lost 85% of her followers, and her desperate attempts to rebuild with increasingly dramatic content had gotten her shadow banned on multiple platforms. Her engagement was down to single digits. Brittany's online boutique had collapsed. The combination of terrible reviews, lost customers, and her own poor business skills had killed it. She was working retail at Target now, which she posted about with humbled grateful, still trying to turn everything into content. But here's where it gets really satisfying. I got a call from an unknown number. Ashley, crying so hysterically I could barely understand her words. "Please, I'm literally begging you. Just tell people this was all a huge misunderstanding. My entire life is destroyed. I can't get any sponsorships. Nobody will work with me. And Tyler, my boyfriend, broke up with me because his family saw all the posts. I'll pay back every single penny. I swear on everything." I let her finish her entire breakdown. Then I said, "Ashley, you don't have any money to pay me back. You never did. That was always the problem." She hung up but called back 2 hours later with Brittany on speaker. Brittany immediately jumped in. "Look, we know we messed up badly, but you're still our brother. Family forgives family, right? We can figure out some payment plan. Maybe I can get a second job and pay you back like $200 monthly." I actually laughed out loud. $200 monthly? At that rate, you'd be 75 years old before paying back what you stole from me. And that's without calculating interest. They both started talking over each other about payment plans and how they'd learned their lesson and how I was the only person who could save them now. I said, "You're absolutely right. I am the only one who can save you. But explain to me why I would want to do that." Then I hung up and blocked both numbers. The calls from Dad came next. 7 voicemails in 2 days, each one more desperate than the last. The final one was him actually crying, something I'd never heard in my entire life. "Son, I know we messed up terrible. I know we all did wrong by you, but I'm about to lose absolutely everything. The office, the house, the cars, everything your mother and I spent 30 years building. I can't file bankruptcy because of these fraud charges hanging over me. I need maybe $85,000 to settle with the bank and another $40,000 to get back on my feet somehow. I'll sign any contract you want. I'll pay whatever interest rate. Just please don't let your old man lose everything like this." Mom's call was the most pathetic thing I'd ever heard. She'd lost her real estate license permanently and was facing serious criminal charges. She was looking at possible jail time and definitely complete financial ruin. "Baby, I made a terrible mistake with that house situation. I thought I could flip it quickly and pay you back before you even noticed anything was wrong. I never meant to hurt you intentionally. I'm your mother. I carried you for 9 months, raised you from nothing, sacrificed my entire youth for you kids. You can't just throw all that away over money issues." The projection was absolutely incredible. I was throwing away family over money, not them bleeding me dry systematically for years. But the call that really interested me was from Uncle Rick. "They've been calling me constantly too, nephew, begging me to talk sense into you. Your dad offered to sign over his truck title if I'd convince you to help them. Ashley said she'd pay me $1,000 to give her your new phone number and address." He paused for a long moment. "What's your move here, son?" I'd been thinking about this decision for weeks. I had complete power now. I could save all of them, every single one, with a single bank transfer. Heck, I'd already recovered most of the stolen money through raises and bonuses at work. But then I remembered that Instagram post, Family Fun Day. Sometimes you need a break from toxic energy. I remembered lying alone in that hospital bed while they celebrated my absence. I remembered 4.5 years of being treated like a walking ATM instead of a son and brother. Let them face the consequences, Rick. Let them all face exactly what they created. 8 months later, I'm writing this from my new house in Dallas. I took a promotion with a defense contractor that came with a $195,000 base salary plus performance bonuses. Turns out when you're not hemorrhaging $5,000 monthly to ungrateful family members, you can build real wealth incredibly quickly. But let me tell you exactly how this story ended, because it's even more satisfying than I planned. After I refused to rescue them, things got progressively worse for my family, much worse. Mom's criminal case went to trial. She pleaded guilty to mortgage fraud and received 20 months in county jail plus 6 years probation. The $58,000 judgment became a permanent lien against any future assets she might acquire. She's financially destroyed for life. Dad's bankruptcy was denied due to fraud associations. He's working at a small insurance agency now, making maybe $35,000 annually if he's lucky. He lost the house, all vehicles, everything, living in a 1-bedroom apartment and riding city buses to work. Ashley moved back with Mom and Dad right before they lost their house, so she got evicted too. She's working double shifts now, Target during the day and food delivery at night, still desperately trying to rebuild her social media presence, but she's stuck around 180 followers. Her content now mostly consists of complaining about how cancel culture destroys innocent people's lives. Brittany actually turned out okay, relatively speaking. Getting humbled was apparently good for her character. She dropped the influencer act completely, got a real marketing job, and is dating some accountant who keeps her grounded. She's the only one who never called begging for money, which I genuinely respect. But here's the absolutely beautiful part. Last month, I got a call from Dad. He'd somehow gotten my new number and was calling from the insurance agency where he works. "Son, I've got a business proposition for you. I know you're doing really well up there in Dallas. I've been keeping track of your success." Keeping track, like he was monitoring his former investment. "There's this insurance agency opportunity here in Houston. The owner wants to retire early, willing to sell for $150,000. It's an established business, solid customer base, great reputation in the community. I could run daily operations, but I need a partner with excellent credit and startup capital." The sheer audacity was breathtaking. After absolutely everything, he was still trying to extract money from me. "I know exactly what you're thinking," he continued, "but this situation is completely different. This would be a legitimate business partnership. You'd own 60%. I'd handle all operations. We could rebuild the family business bigger and better than ever before." I let him deliver his entire pitch. 6 minutes of him explaining how this was our opportunity to heal the family and prove to everyone that we're stronger together than apart. When he finished, I said, "Dad, that sounds really interesting. Send me the complete business plan and financial projections and I'll have my people review everything thoroughly." His voice completely lit up with excitement. "Really, son? This is going to be absolutely amazing. We're going to show everyone that actually, I lied. I interrupted. I wouldn't invest in you if you were the last business opportunity on planet Earth. You, Mom, and Ashley burned that bridge forever when you threw a celebration party while I was dying in a hospital bed. Complete silence for 30 seconds. But Dad, I do have a proposition for you. I need someone to wash my cars here in Dallas. It pays $12 an hour and you'd need to relocate at your own expense. You'd report directly to me and I'd have complete authority over your performance evaluations. Interested in that opportunity? He hung up immediately. That was 5 weeks ago. I haven't heard from any of them since that conversation. Here's what I learned through all of this. Family isn't about shared DNA. It's about mutual respect, genuine loyalty, and authentic care. Uncle Rick is more real family to me than my parents or sisters ever were. My CO workers who called 911 when I collapsed showed more family love than the people who share my genetics. My actual family now includes Rick, my girlfriend Jennifer, whom I met after moving to Dallas, and friends I've made who appreciate me for who I am, not what I can provide them. As for my biological family, they made their choice 4 years ago when they decided I was more valuable as a financial resource than as a human being. They chose money over relationships, convenience over character, and entitlement over empathy. I simply gave them exactly what they chose.